How did you break into the business?
Well, I got started work-wise. I got started from a writing, producing standpoint. And I started out actually in Atlanta, Georgia, at a production company, and it was writing and producing shows. Some of them were going on NBC. They were basically documentary specials, and TBS when they had documentary specials on that as well. So I kind of started out in that, writing and producing, and then that kind of did more into directing in that as well. But at the same time, I've always been kind of like doing my original story projects. And then once I got together with Laurence, my wife Lo, we basically found we had very similar interests. And she came at it more from a visual DP side initially. But as we started doing projects together, everything kind of really blurred together in terms of what we would do. And so we basically have been making, I mean, Echoes of Fear is our fifth feature film. It's also our fifth horror feature that we've done together. But it was the first one that we co-directed, officially co-directed. Although, I mean, because the lines had just been kept blurring anyway with what we did. And eventually in this one, we're like, okay, you know what? You're going to officially co-direct this one. Because she already is a DP and we were very collaborative. I mean, the directing and the work you do as a DP, it was already getting like this. And she was working with the actors. It was just happening organically. So we just basically moved it all the way to say we're officially co-directing. So we co-directed it. We work on the story together. I actually write the script, the mechanics of writing the script, but she's very involved in story and story ideas and taking the script once I get it and coming up with like all these original interesting ideas, which inherently make it a lot more complicated, which is funny because she's also the producer. So she gives me these limitations like, okay, you need to do it like this. And then I do it like that. And then she starts expanding the story. It becomes more and more difficult to produce, but it's okay because she's doing it. But we basically develop the story and grow it from there, and it's a very organic process.
You went to USC, but you grew up in the South? Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I was born in Jersey, but I grew up in East Tennessee.
Oh, you were born in Jersey?
Yeah.
Oh,
it was
wow.
very, very few years there.
Interesting.
And then I really grew up. My childhood was in East Tennessee.
Okay.
So a lot of like our first film we did together, Freezer. A lot of that was based on a family farm that I spent a lot of time on growing up. But definitely, like for me, the environment's very important. From a horror film and from growing up in the South, there was a lot of stuff in the mountains and trees and woods and farms and barns and all that kind of stuff. So that was very much in the early beginning when we did our first feature. A lot of that came into that.
And a lot of secrets too. If you watch Sharp Objects,
Yes.
I don't know if you watch it.
Yes.
Fantastic, love it. The secretive nature of all the characters and them sort of revealing themselves and holding it back. So it's something very interesting that, you know, and the bless your heart, but then you can't tell.
Well, it's very
do they really mean it or not?
Yes, it's very interesting in a small town. It's like, it's weird. You have to keep your guard up so much in a small town because it's like everybody knows everybody, and then gossip gets around and everybody talks. Mm-hmm. So you just kind of really have to keep like a very careful face. It's like when you get into the city, which I love, it's like everyone is so cool. Nobody cares.
Right.
It's so great. You can just be yourself and no one really cares anymore. And to me, it's like very liberating that you don't have to like try to be like, oh, I need to be careful, because everyone's different, everyone's crazy, and everyone kind of knows it in the city.
Right.
And so it's like it's not really that big of a deal. But yeah, definitely in the small town, which is why I think a lot of great horror movies are set in small town environments, and that because it's like it does add that mystery and intrigue because everyone's always watching everyone else. So what's the neighbor doing? And what are they up to, and that kind of thing. So.
Well, I think too, they don't have enough going on in their lives in small towns.
Yes,
and I think a lot of bad stuff comes out of that, whether it's real stuff that someone's gossiping about or fabricated. And I think you can even like look at the beginning of Rambo, so he's going into this new town, and then Brian Dennehy sees him, and he's like, I don't recognize that guy, so there's so little going on that when something that's sort of out of the ordinary, what is it? Idle hands or the devil's, whatever that saying is.
Well, there's a great, I can't remember the story, but one of the original Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle stories that they published in the Strand, he's like in a train with Watson, and they're leaving the city, heading out into the country, and Watson's like looking out like, oh, look at the beautiful countryside. And then Sherlock Holmes says, well, it's an occupational hazard, but I can't look at it like that because I see all these neighbors and they're all separated and they're all so isolated. I'm always like, well, what are they doing? They could be doing anything because no one's really can see what they're doing. And he goes, that's why he said, like in the city, he would say in the city, at least you have your neighbors keeping you in check because you're being watched a little bit. There's people around you, but like out in the farm in the countryside, it's like who knows what's in the barn or in that basement or hidden in that locked house. In the farm, family farm I grew up, it's like my brother-in-law stayed some time in the house before the farm got sold. And he was like, it was a firm believer, like if you just took a compass and you drew out a circle that encompassed the same population, like all the stuff that's happening in a city is happening in the country. It's all just about the being of the population, but it's scarier in the country because it's so isolated. And if something's happening, it's like, how are you going to find out about it?